Let me. Thank you. Reminder that minutes are being kept by recording. And I'm having trouble finding the agenda here again.
Yeah, I think that we'll probably need to do a roll call.
Okay. Val Humble present here.
Eric
Karen?
Molnieder, present.
Karen, can you hear us?
I don't think Karen can hear us.
Hasn't got her ears on yet. I guess until she can hear us, maybe we don't really have an effective quorum.
It's true.
Great.
That is a
Well done.
requirement of the public meeting law. So why don't I call
I just messaged her through the app, but we'll see. She sees that.
Ah, there comes.
She's got music.
Hi, Karen.
Hi,
Okay.
sorry about that.
We just were taking roll call, and if you'll identify yourself as present, that'll allow us to have quorum. So are you here, Karen?
No, I'm sleeping. This is illusion. Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay. Wendy, can you put up the agenda for me for a second?
And we have our other two board members joining us.
Oh, just a second. I think I've got to print it out one in the other room.
Welcome, everyone. Got a minor change to the order on the agenda. We're gonna take number 3 first. And Val has just stepped out to get the agenda. So I see Kathy and Mary Helen are joined us, so. Welcome, everybody.
I had a problem with that meeting times thing again. It said you're not authorized to join this meeting. So I had to go back out and find the Zoom link. So I don't know. It might have only been me. And I don't mind not being authorized to do anything. So
You
thanks.
just do it anyway, right?
Yeah, just
Sorry.
do it anyway. I don't pay attention.
Regrets for the trouble.
Welcome, Mary Helen. Okay, I've now retrieved my paper agenda. Wendy suggested that we should modify the agenda to go to the item 3, Collins report, before the executive session. Is there any objection to altering the agenda to that?
No,
Okay, let's do that. Colin?
Thanks all. Colin Rowan, Director of Planning and Public Affairs. I wanted to give you a quick update on the Business Oregon grants to support the Penn 2 non-federal sponsor share of the Portland Metro Levee System Studies next phase, which is called the Pre-Construction Engineering and Design phase. Business Oregon is the Oregon Business Development Department, and these are the grants that we applied for through the Special Public Works Funds Levee Grant Program, which was recently created. And so this is the first round of grants going out. I wanted to give a little bit of a refresher before giving the update, and then I'll provide what the next steps are. So as a reminder, in August of 2021, last year, our feasibility study, which was a 3-year assessment of if the what is needed to modernize our levee system. And it was the federal government, the Army Corps of Engineers determination if there's federal interest in reinvesting in the system. And so they went through that process, and there was the determination of federal interest that was expressed through a signed chief's report, which was issued in August of 2021. That allows for us to move into the next phase of the project, which is the design phase. So the design phase that we'll just call PED, the pre-construction engineering design, is a 3.5-year design phase. The non-federal sponsors, which are the 4 drainage districts, are responsible for 35% cost share on that. The contracting and all of that work for the actual design work is done by the Army Corps of Engineers, both by Corps staff and their contractors. And we provide a cost share, which is at that 35%. To pay for that, we identified the ability to use these Business Oregon grant funds to pay, it's weird math, but to pay 80% of that 35%. So it was a great opportunity with the non-federal sponsors providing a 20% match of the 35%. In the resolutions that were brought to your boards last winter, it has the breakdown of all those numbers, but at the highest level, the Business Oregon contribution is $1.12 million for that phase, and roughly, so that's total is 4.48 million across the 4 districts. So we provided those, we sent in those applications, and as we talked to Business Oregon, the initial applications were for a 2-year request. That was specified in the resolution that the drainage districts passed, largely based on the expectation of dissolution to the Urban Flood Safety Water Quality District happening in May of 2024. And so there was a 2-year expectation for funding. That represents 70% of the total PED phase. Business Oregon requested that we include the full 3.5 years of the funding request. They don't want to split that, and they don't want for that to come on from basically split a single phase into 2 requests. That matches what the drainage districts will need to sign with the Army Corps of Engineers. You'll be signing a design agreement, which is for the full design phase. We did check and we'll be getting it in writing, but those contracts are transferable. So the 4 contracts that the drainage districts will be signing with Business Oregon will be transferred to the Urban Flood Safety Water Quality District. So we'll be able to do the entire design phase, getting this 80% match through Business Oregon, which is great. On August 8th, the requests were brought to the Infrastructure Finance Authority Board. They're the decision makers for releasing these funds, and they approved that. A note was sent out to all the drainage district boards at that time. Just 2 weeks ago now, we received the initial contracts from Business Oregon. And so Hong and Armand will be reviewing those and we'll be moving that forward. The next steps for this are we'll need to revisit the resolution that was passed in February of this year to include the full 3.5 years of funding. Of course, it's always up to the boards as an annual appropriation. Also, there is a condition in that resolution which requested a cost sharing IGA to be developed amongst the 4 districts. And so we'll be bringing a draft of those, that cost sharing IGA for your consideration. And then you'll also be receiving a resolution which directs Jim as the executive director. He would be the signatory of that contract, but directs him to sign that contract. So the timing on that is we'll be looking to bring these documents to you, at least initial draft versions of them in December and January, and hopefully by the end of January or February have all of that signed. One other piece that I left out earlier was where we are as far as overall getting in the PED phase. When do we actually start that phase with the Army Corps of Engineers? It's really important. There's 2 pieces that are moving forward at the federal level, which is our appropriations need. That's the annual funding. That's the money that is needed each year. And then there's the authorization, which is through an act of Congress, in this case, the Water Resources Development Act, which would authorize the Army Corps of Engineers to complete this construction project. So basically to see it all the way through. We're included in both the House and the Senate versions of the Water Resources Development Act, WRDA. And so we feel that we're in a good place for when that actually comes to the floor and gets voted on, that our project will be authorized, so we'll have congressional authorization. There's possibility of that happening in December, but we also thought that that was possible to happen by the end of September. So the crystal ball still has a little bit of murkiness, but we're in a good place. And then, excuse me, for the appropriations request, that's the annual funding need. We are in both the House and the Senate budgets. We were also in the president's budget. So we have a high level of confidence that will be included in the federal budget when that's approved. They are currently in a continuing resolution, which allows them to continue last federal fiscal year's budget through December. It is likely that they'll have another continuing resolution that will go into maybe even February or March like they did last year. So if anyone has a better crystal ball as far as when the federal government will approve their budget, we would love to hear it. But that is when sort of we imagine the big drop of money will be released and we'll actually be able to begin that PED phase. That funding is year one of the PED funding at the federal level. Hong, if there's anything additional, please add it around the next steps and I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. I think I'll leave my picture frozen since it seemed to be okay to hear you. I also want to observe that Kathy Kellen was able to join us very shortly into Colin's full quorum, or not just quorum, the full board is present. My whole screen is frozen. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm getting nasty messages from my machinery. We're now ready to go into executive session.
Actually, I think Eric has a question.
Yes, Eric. Go ahead.
So, Colin, just a couple of points to clarify. So, the share of funds that will be required of Penn 2 out of our free cash will be slightly more than $200,000, correct?
That's correct. I think in total, it ends up being 224,000. There will be some adjustments. And so our commitment, so when we go in and negotiate the design phase, there will be, obviously inflation and other factors will be brought into those numbers, and we'll be providing the board with updates on what those actual numbers are. But from where the information that we have, and we don't have anything additional in the Corps' sort of total need of 5.56 million. Each board, each district is on for about 225,000.
Okay, and so we're going to share those costs evenly across the 4 districts, not based upon where the work is actually occurring.
Correct, and that's how the Corps approaches the design as well. They see it as one system. They operate. So it's not, they're not splitting costs. And so this will be evenly split across the 4 districts, correct?
Okay, thanks very much. And then with inflation, we would be responsible for what is our share of that. And it's not anticipated that, let's say that it goes up by $500,000. Business Oregon is not going to increase their grant to us. We would have to absorb that, correct?
That is correct, but I'll note the 5.6 million, the number that we use for the local contribution includes a 25% contingency.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric, and I apologize for rushing on there in my confusion. Are there any other, Mary Helen?
Yes, for my simple accounting kind of thing, when you said the 4 districts will share, they will share the $220,000? No.
No, each board, each district is responsible for about 225,000 across the 3.5 or 4 fiscal years for the contribution.
So if a district decides they don't want to, can they decide they don't want to share?
Each year, it will require appropriation as part of the purpose of the cost sharing IGA is to have that shared understanding. And Hong, maybe want to add any more on that?
Yeah, so that's the whole purpose of drafting and having all 4 districts execute on a cost sharing intergovernment agreement, that they make these promises to each other and keep them, including funding as budget and revenues are available.
Okay, always being the skeptic. Boards change, and so somebody might agree this year, but in 3 years, a whole new board could say, we don't want to give them our money.
And hopefully we'll provide a provision in the IGA to sort of to secure that.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Mary Helen. Any further questions? Okay, now may we be ready to go on to the executive session.
I need to read in the exact numbers for the purpose of this executive session, right? And make a motion to move into executive session?
Yeah, yes, it's on the agenda.
So
So
that's normally the purpose, the chair will do that. I
Okay,
don't believe a motion is necessary. Is a motion?
You don't need a
necessary?
motion. You just need to
Yeah.
cite the statutory provision that allows you to go into executive session.
yeah, sorry, I didn't hear. Yes, so Val can go ahead and get us into executive session by citing the provisions that's in the agenda. And then you can
For-
excuse all
for
the staff.
For staff, we just need Lori, Hong, and me,
So
please.
I'm gonna send all of us into a breakout room that will allow staff to remain in the Zoom room, and they'll know when we come back out then.
Okay. And Wendy, you're welcome to stay to help facilitate the staff coming back.
can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Pursuant to ORS 40.225, ORS 192.355, parentheses 9, parentheses A, and 192.660, parentheses 2, parentheses F, the board will convene an executive session to discuss legal advice and attorney-client communication. So we're now in executive session.
Okay, hold on, everyone. I will pause the recording and send us all to a breakout room.
Camera's fixed. Thank you. Now, let me check the chat here. There are in the chat a couple of motions. Do any board member wish to make either of those motions?
Mr. President, I move that we accept move a motion to accept MCDD's payment for the underassessment error, which is estimated to be $18,500.
Thank you, Eric. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Thank you. Was that Karen?
It was Kathy.
That's Kathy. Thank you. Any discussion? Let's take a roll call vote on that. I like to start in seniority order. Karen?
I vote aye.
Is it Mary Helen next?
Okay, I mean, yes.
Val Humble votes yes. Karen, or excuse me, Kathy
Aye.
and Eric.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. The motion is carried. We have a second motion that we'd like to have a motion on.
Mr. President, I move to authorize staff to refund to any landowner to whom the district overassessed in the amount of $20 or higher.
Thank you, Eric. A second.
I'll second that. This is Karen.
Thank you, Karen. Is there any discussion? Okay. How do you vote, Karen?
I vote aye.
Val Humble votes aye. Mary Helen?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Thank you. It's unanimous. The motion is passed.
Thank
Well,
you.
So the next item on the agenda is our budget update.
Jim, did you want to start?
Yeah, I guess I would just reiterate some of the things that I shared before. We did identify some changes that need to be made. And again, per contract, the changes are based on my authority. And I just want to make sure you recognize that as the administrator of the agency, your role is to hold me accountable for any challenges that emerge. So I just wanted to reiterate that for you, and that the entire staff is working hard to create an accurate and transparent budget, and against my responsibility to ensure that happens. So thank you for hearing me out on that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so before I pull up my screen, I just wanted to start with kind of an overview of where we're at in the budget process. So yes, we are starting to look at the budget, the upcoming budget process for the new fiscal year. We're about not even quite halfway through this fiscal year, and so the first step for us, just really, we've identified some issues that we'll be walking you through with this budget that we believe need to be considered for correction, so that we have a starting budget that is in the right place. And then coming in January, we will be bringing to you our first round of forecasts for where we believe we will end the year, this budget year. Those forecasts then help us to estimate what we think our roll forward fund balance will be in the upcoming budget. So that's one of those resources in your budget, and that will help us to determine that amount, and then be able to really have our discussion about what the budget looks like for the upcoming year. So with that overview, I'll pull up my screen and walk you through the corrections that we've identified for the current year budget. All right, can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Thank you. So in your
I
packet
can't see
today.
it. I can't not see the screen.
Oh, no.
I didn't see the last one either, but it didn't seem to be important as you read everything.
Valerie, you muted?
I can see it.
Could we
Okay.
email that slide or slides to Karen?
It's actually in the packet. So Karen, it's.
Oh,
the
okay. I've got the
attachment.
packet here.
Okay,
Regret
it's the
for the-
attachment. It's the schedule that shows all the numbers. So in your packet today, you'll find the schedule and memo providing information on a series of budget corrections that we've identified in relation to the 22-23 adopted budget. The first column in the schedule shows you the budget that you adopted in June of 2022. In column 1, you can see over $400,000 in corrections to the beginning fund balance. The beginning fund balance in your adopted budget was understated by this amount. So this is good news. You actually have more money than what you thought when you developed the budget. So in order to reflect that, we felt like it was important for you to see those dollar amounts and see how they flowed through to the ending fund balance. In column 2, there's a correction for the JCA contribution for your district. We identified some budget corrections in the JCA adopted budget that are providing a reduction to the amount of support needed for the JCA in this current year. So there's a savings of almost $49,000 in that adjustment from the JCA. Column 3, we're correcting the principal and interest costs for the current year. The adopted budget stated those scheduled payments by a little over $8,000. So there's some savings there as well. In column 4, there's a correction to reduce service contract revenue by about $15,000. Other revenues were understated by $4,000 because the development revenue charges were noted on a line in the budget, but weren't included in the total revenue amount. So the spreadsheet just missed that line and didn't include that in the total. So that ends up being a net reduction of $10,000 to fund balance. In column 5, there's a request to adjust capital outlay by $55,000. That's an increase in cost. The OSHA fall protection project costs are higher than estimated in the budget by this amount. Not a surprise, we're seeing a lot of inflation in construction costs, and this is one of those areas where we needed a little additional money to be able to complete that project. So we're asking the board to consider these adjustments. I'm going to stop my sharing now to update and so we've provided you with language for a motion to update the budget so that we are actually stating the budget correctly for the year. This is a little bit unusual. I wouldn't normally come to you with this sort of a correction process. In a regular year, the only time you would hear from me about correcting the current budget is if we ended up with a cost overrun and needed some appropriation authority to be able to spend that money. But we felt like with these corrections to the fund balance being so significant to your overall total, that it was important to be transparent with the board and make sure that you had that information and knew that our projections were a little bit off in that budget document. So that's why we're bringing this to you today. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those. Eric? You're muted.
All right, back on. So first of all, thank you for bringing these forward. I do appreciate the fact that we are updating that beginning cash balance because it is really difficult to keep track of what's a current year shortfall versus prior year when you have a favorable item of $408,000. So it sort of, this again is, it makes it much easier for me to focus my attention on what's real as opposed to what's just a minor thing. The second element is that at some point I'd like to have a discussion with the finance staff about our stormwater revenues. I don't understand how they're calculated. It's not necessarily a long period of time, but I don't want to, disrupt our meeting to go into something that my fellow board members probably understand much better than I do. And I'm particularly interested in understanding why the rates charged by MCDD are very different from Penn 1 and Penn 2. And I realize there are probably excellent reasons for it. I don't know what they are.
And I can tell you just as a hint, just as a foreshadowing of that conversation, that the presentation regarding the assessment calculations where we're talking about the allocation costs and those cost drivers, that same information is used in the calculation of the stormwater fees. So, but we are certainly happy to walk you through that so that you can see how that's calculated for the stormwater fees as well. I'm happy to do that.
We'll make sure and follow up.
Thank you very much. The next element is in terms of the OSHA fall protection measures. So I learned quite a bit about the operation of an organization by both its favorable and unfavorable variances. And I view this as an unfavorable. I don't want to make it's when you bring that to light is when we can start to act and plan better for the future. So I view it as kind of an extraordinary set of circumstances to say, oh, we're going to revise the budget. In most instances, I'd rather just have it be a negative variance and have a complete discussion on it. So in this instance, it's one that I'm struggling with. Is there a reason that we have to, sort of increase the budget for it? Is this, or is this that $55,000 something that can come out of free cash?
So it's kind of a twofold answer.
Okay.
One of the things that I'm doing here is really, as we know, we don't fall under Oregon budget law, so we don't have the kind of limitations on appropriations that a regular Oregon government entity would have. But I am trying to really start to have board members see what that process will look like going forward. So under a regular Oregon budget law, if I didn't have enough money appropriated to do this project, then I couldn't do the project. I would have to stop. And Oregon, the way Oregon law reads, me as the top finance person, I could be held personally accountable for budget overruns for the organization. So it's really critical for us to make sure that we have that authorization from the board to do the spending. I can tell you that what I have done in other cases is gone back to our team and said, hey, what projects can wait? How can you get this budget to balance to fit in the additional costs that we're seeing, because it's difficult. You know, we start the budget so far in advance. Sometimes it's really difficult to project how much money you're going to need to successfully complete a project. And so there's some of that give and take that normally happens during the year in a budget appropriation setting. So we'll say, okay, if you need $50,000 more here, where can you cut out $50,000? We did not do this in this scenario. I don't believe we felt like there was room for play in this, like you would normally have, where you could cut back on costs elsewhere. If you are truly concerned about it, we can hold off on that budget correction, and I can talk again with the team and see if we can find some savings, and we can come back to you in January when we do those revised forecasts and really address it again and let you know kind of where we landed with it. So that certainly is an option. One of the reasons that I felt like, hey, it was okay to put this in is because we had identified kind of offsetting savings, both with that JCA adjustment and correcting the principal of it and interest. If you look, that's about $57,000 worth of savings, which really offsets that 55 in additional project costs. So I had kind of done that balancing with those corrections, but certainly there's no kind of right or wrong way to do this. So if you're not comfortable with that line item, we certainly can wait and try to dig in and see if there's other savings that could offset that as well.
Well, thank you, Saint Offset. He is Saint Offset has saved my tuchus a number of times as a professional and in these budgetary roles. So what I would like to do, though, is just have that discussion. Val, I think it's something that where we as board members should weigh in and say, is this something that we want to get cuts out of the rest of the organization, or do we really want to increase the budget for it? So moving forward, I would like to have this discussion on major changes to it, and I think 55, anything over 50 is really important, because what I need to do is be able to learn from it. And if we've missed $100,000 project by 50, that's something that I want to be aware of. The final element is help me understand the change in the capital reserves. So I'll start with what my understanding is. Capital reserves to me are when we set aside money for a bondable project, a fairly significant amount of capital expenditure that we'll need at some point in the future. And I view it as sort of allocated or reserved funds, things that are there for likely future capital expenditures. What you're recommending here is, in effect, that we've over-reserved for those kind of capital items. Am I correct in the direction that I'm taking?
It would certainly look that way, but what we're recommending here is that the budget actually misstated that beginning balance of the capital reserve. So there wasn't $1 million there to begin with. And so we're correcting for that.
All right. So let's just think about processes where we can tie out to prior beginning balances, and I think that, Lori, as we move forward, that if we have something that's just a change in the beginning balance, I'm okay in as soon as it's known. So August, early September of the year, us having this kind of discussion where we change those beginning balances so we don't have these misleading favorable or unfavorable elements in our budget, and can really look at it that way.
Great, thank you. I appreciate knowing that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then the last piece, although the fall safety is maybe a smaller project, Bill is working on implementing pre-designs for all of our capital projects so that you won't get budget estimates other than a pre-design estimate. And then we'll bring you the actual estimate after we've done thorough pre-design. So we hope to start to wring some of the uncertainty out of these cost estimates, particularly with the rate of inflation right now. But again, we're just getting started on that. This project predated Bill's new initiative. So.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? I'd like to comment that I'm concerned that we do get on with the fall prevention projects. I'm particularly nervous about that 6th Street culvert. And then, of course, we need to be concerned about the outflow from our pump station on 13th Street.
Mhm.
Any other comments that people like to make? Anything to wrap up, Lori?
There is a proposed motion to accept the amendments to the budget in the chat.
Okay, are we prepared to do that? Do you want to make a final pitch, Eric, or for doing it or not doing it?
So, Mr. President, I am in favor of the changes as noted. I think that we have had a very full and frank discussion of those with the finance staff. We've indicated, I think, what we would like to see in the future in terms of discussing these favorable and unfavorable variances, and that will help us be a more effective partner with the staff in hitting our budget goals and hitting our safety and performance goals.
Thank you. If that's the case, then there is a suggested motion in the chat. Does someone wish to make it?
Mr. President, I move to approve the budget adjustments for fiscal year 2022-2023 as documented in attachment 1 of our board meeting notes.
Thank you, Eric. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Was that Mary Helen?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, let's take a roll call vote on that. Karen,
Aye.
Mary Helen,
Aye.
Kathy,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Al Humble votes aye. It's unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
support, board members. Really appreciate it.
We're now at public outreach discussion, I do believe. Did Wendy suggest that Jim was going to start that discussion?
Yeah, I think I can. I want to make sure we address all of your concerns. I've heard about a couple of them, but I guess we did, and I regret that it was a little bit late. We did try to prepare a little bit of a background memo for you all. So just to address a little bit of the process that we go through for a landowner meeting really briefly, and then honestly, I want you guys to weigh in here, but we acquire the list of landowners from Multnomah County assessor. It's the best list available based on all the sale transactions. We acquire that list and start about 8 weeks out by sending the list over to a mail house. The mail house processes the information and gets a postcard out. We try and identify a landing time for that postcard that's not too far away from the meeting, but not too close to the meeting. We've chosen to use bulk rate postage because there's a lot of pieces of mail and it's expensive to go first class. Unfortunately, bulk rate is at the discretion of the post office, so there may be some errors or time issues with when those things are delivered. The last thing I want to say is I know that there's been, or two things I want to say. On the broader outreach, when apparently that's been done in the past, it has been difficult to only reach landowners. And so we end up with people who are renters or otherwise ineligible to vote, feeling upset that they've been told about a meeting that they can't vote at. And then the other issue for Penn 2 is you guys have a lot of residences, and so they all get 1 acre. So it's even harder than say SDIC for us to get a quorum. And then last, I know there were concerns and some challenges with at least 2 proxies that Mary Helen, I know you were helping with, and Eric, I believe you were helping with, and we do need to dig into that. And I know Wendy's looking into some of the particulars. But I do need to share with you that even if we had been successful in getting those 2 proxies, we would have still fallen quite short of a quorum, which does not obviate the need for this conversation. And then finally, in my time here, we've not achieved a quorum at any of the districts. And it's my understanding from talking to Emily and others who've been around that I think in the last 7 or 8 years, there's only been twice when a district was successful in achieving a quorum. So I just wanted to share that with you. And again, we are all ears in terms of how we can improve, how we can do better outreach. And we do have obviously bigger plans for the urban district and some of the work that's moving as soon as we get through a little bit more of the discussion with the urban board and settle on some information that's more salient for renters and landowners and everybody else. So with that, I'm really interested in hearing your concerns and trying to come up with a proactive strategy to address them. And I appreciate you making time to raise them. And staff is here for the duration to hear you out.
Since you mentioned my name, I'll take the advantage first.
Please.
The 2 instances that you mentioned didn't include 3 others that I had issues with, that had all gone smoothly before. I mean, for 5 years, I'd been a proxy, and then this year they all went sideways. And using the Multnomah County, I mean, I'm not going to get into the details, but TMT, I'll mention them, it is a complicated organization. I've been their proxy vote for 5 years. Never had an issue until this year. They didn't receive a postcard. The postcard went to Amazon Pro Lodges in Denver because it was identified as Hayden Meadows, which is a similarly named corporation, but the address was TMT Development's downtown office. So I don't know what lists were used before. A couple other people sent in proxies. It didn't show up on that list that you sent. And so my concern is not who did it and how it got done or any of those things. It's how can we do better to tell the public about what they're going to be charged for? And that's going to be an issue, I think, bigger than even I realize, excuse me, in my little world. And you had given me figures of, or I saw them in a memo or something of upwards somewhere around $100 for people in Penn 2 of increases. Well, $100 is, I'm not going to say okay, is okay for me, but when you get to TMT Development, that's like $10,000 to them, and they're going to maybe ask about it, but like maybe they don't pay attention and they just pay their bills. I don't know, but it seemed of concern to them to be included in conversations and question why it was different this year. And so I would like to, and Evan's been in public engagement for years. I've done my experience with bulk rate mailings has never been too terribly satisfactory, because the mail house can take 30 days and the post office, to be quite frankly, can decide whether they want to deliver the mail today or tomorrow or never. And no one ever knows. The mail piece, I never got one. And so, but I did see a neighbor's, and it was a pretty fancy mail piece, and it was like 5 by 7. And so the size of it might have had something to do with whether anybody wanted to deal with it or not. And I'd just like to visit a process, just get above all I don't even care what happened, because it happened, it's done. But to be able to learn of how we can better inform the people that are going to be affected, and to speak to the renters. 2 instances that I know of, the owners are in one is in Los Angeles, one's in San Francisco. And they threw theirs in the garbage because they didn't know what it meant. The renters said if they would have known what it meant, they would have encouraged them to fill it out and send it in. So if we can craft something that says, we know you're a renter and you can't vote, but will you please let your landlord know so they can vote? That, that's far too blunt, but when you tallied up the proxy votes, BES has some, Parks Bureau has some. I counted up the ones that I thought were missing. And it would have been close to 600. So I think that we need to evaluate those. I know Eric has some issues with some of the mortgages because they went to, out-of-state owners, and how those are tabulated acre-wise, et cetera. So my purpose in bringing this all up, and I know I've been labeled troublemaker and made some people roll their eyes at me, but it's to be better serve the people that I'm supposed to serve so that they are comfortable and enjoy the fact that they live in Penn 2 and the floodplain and what the effect of them living here is. So that's my, I guess if you say concerns, but that's my stump speech is, it doesn't matter what happened because it happened and it's over. But if we can do a better job of letting people know what they're paying for, I think we have a better chance of passing a GO bond and having them be cheerleaders and all of those things. Because at this point, I feel constrained with being able to say, oh, vote for the GO bond. And they say, I didn't even know we had a levy. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mary Helen. Eric?
Well, this election integrity issue is particularly important as we move towards dissolution. At some point, Mr. President, we're going to be asked to vote on dissolving Penn 2 and moving it into the urban district. And that's going to mean moving millions of dollars of funds of the landowners into a new entity. And before we do that, I want to make certain that I legitimately do represent them, but I need that to be confirmed by a vote. And so what I would hope to do is work with Mary Helen, with yourself, with other people that live here that know the people and act proactively to say, get your vote in. And this is something where I would hope that our board, as a board, says, all right, it's over, it's done with, but in 2023, we're going to have some major issues that we have to discuss. And I want to make certain that everybody has had their say, has made a positive vote for us as board members. So this is a project that I would be willing to undertake with the staff and any other board members that are interested in supporting me around getting a real quorum at our next meeting.
Thank you, Eric. Is there anyone else who would like to say something? Kathy?
Yeah, well, I have mostly just questions, and I guess I'm struggling to understand what's changed over the past, what was it, 6 or 7 years that we haven't had a quorum. It's certainly not just outreach, right? There's something else going on.
Well, it's not that we had it's not that we had a quorum consistently before that. It was just an example that in the past like 10 years or so, we've only gotten quorum a couple of times, and that is typical.
Okay.
It's not that we previously had a quorum and now we don't. It's just that it's pretty unusual. And I think it was outlined in that memo, sort of like some of the like significant extra efforts on those years to get quorum. Like,
Gotcha. Okay.
And again, this structure was set up when the districts were initially created, and there was probably a dozen landowners.
Right.
So it's really an archaic approach to governance, and it's one of the key reasons that we're trying to move to a different governance model. It doesn't mean we can't do more and be more effective in getting people to turn out, but this was one of the challenges that led to the new district.
I have a personal observation in that area. When we moved here in 1978, and I got the card about the meeting, I went around Christmas time in 1978. I think there were 3 of us present, and the other folks were the 2 guys who ran the district. So yeah, as long as we're not being flooded, people kind of don't worry about it.
And I just a couple of thoughts. Why aren't people interested? And is it because they don't know, or they don't want to be interested. And that's a valid response. I don't care. But when it comes to dollars, I think they're going to care a whole lot more. And I want, and to Jim's point about there was, 12 farmers, that's all fine and good, and old things need to be changed. And that's why I think we need to take a different approach to being able to convey what today is, as opposed to trying to use something. And I don't think it's out of line to say we can use different approaches. East Columbia, for example, used to do a big picnic. We'd get 300 people at the picnic, and people would get lots of information. But we don't do the picnic anymore. So that doesn't mean we don't need to tell people or don't need to involve people. But so we just need to find those approaches that say, hey, do you want to learn where your money's going to go on, whatever the case may be. But I think being able to identify truly who or how to contact the person with the proxy vote all the way to the message needs to somehow connect. And I've had conversations with Eric and other Drainage District board members, and everyone says, yeah, we don't know why people don't come to the meeting. And so I think it's upon us to figure out why they don't, and whether it's asking, basically, when I ask them, they say, because you go, because I talk to the same neighbors and they give me their proxy votes. So I think we need to, and if they did come, what would they get? Besides meeting at the yacht club and getting cookies and fancy food to take home later. So, I mean, and people go to
Hard to
meetings.
do that virtually. Yeah.
Yeah. And so meeting virtually isn't that, and some people don't know how to meet virtually. So I think we just need to identify some of the issues of how we can better involve people, and then give them the choice to be involved. And if they choose not to, so be it.
I think that's an excellent point, Mary Helen. And in fact, as we look at moving to an urban flood safety water quality district, we're going to be moving to a type of funding that people can kind of refuse to pay, which is not the situation now. Now we have a property tax assessment, and people are kind of coerced much more. Well, we got a stronger arm now. In the future, we really need their cooperation, because they can decline to pay their utility payment, or they can vote against the geo bond. So it is much more important going forward that we have the support of the public. It was okay for them to ignore us in the past, but it won't be in the future, because we'll be asking them to pay money, and they will have an opportunity to say no.
If I could add, sorry.
Go ahead. You go ahead. Emily.
I was just going to say, and I would just say, like, this topic is very near and dear to me, because I have been working on all these meetings for all these districts for several years. And so I definitely recognize sort of all of the challenges and frustrations of this piece. And I think, Mary Helen, I think you're exactly right. And I hope that it is clear. I think we're all aligned on this, this way of doing things, as far as sending an invitation to the registered owner of the that is, we do need to have different approaches for engagement. And I think that is what all Evan's work is, and I think the point is we are required to, by our statute, to do these specific steps for this particular meeting, but in no way is this meeting, do we think that this is the way that the public will become informed on what their costs are going to be, the new district, important issues. We are required to do this meeting in this way, and we're sort of constrained by a lot of things. And so I think hopefully it's been conveyed that we're trying to put more effort into more innovative and actual more productive outreach that does reach all of those people that have those concerns. Since this meeting, it's really difficult to meet all those needs within the constraints that we have for this particular meeting. And Evan does a lot of work on trying to find other ways to engage people and make sure people can be informed. And this meeting, just within kind of the parameters, it's difficult to meet those better engagement goals.
And to provide an example of that, one of the things that has really just driven me crazy since I got here is that we use this mailing list that comes from the assessor's office. The names are all wonky on it. Sometimes it doesn't even have names. It's just like a random set of initials for a business. And the thing that always sort of sits with me is if there's a flood emergency, we aren't responsible for contacting those folks, but in a lot of cases, we contact them first. We're the early communicator. So this year, part of the budget that all the districts approved for having a higher communications budget, we're doing a series of mailings asking these folks to give us their contact information, including their names, their emails, their phone numbers, their spouses' names, their renters' names, so that we can actually know who these people are and do a better job of communicating in the future. We did our first one, and honestly, I thought we were going to get like 20 responses because that's usually how our mailings go. And I lost count after 400, like that across the districts. But you know, we got a lot of response across the districts. MCDD residents was much higher than Penn 2, but this is not the only one. We plan on doing more. And I think that message of, hey, you guys, if there's a flood, we want to be able to reach you, makes sense to people. It seemed to resonate a lot more than other stuff we've tried in terms of mailing. So we're going to keep doing that and building on it so that we actually have real people and names, and maybe then you can assist us in actually going and talking to those people because we have a way of reaching them, but it's going to be a slow process. And I think to a certain extent, you're right. I talk to a lot of people out there, and when I talk to them, they usually say like, great, sounds like you guys are doing a great job. Let me know if there's something big that's going to happen, but right now I've got a lot going on. So appreciate you being here. See you later. Come back if there's something important. And I think that's just, you all are exceptional human beings that you really want to do this and drive it. And I think we have an opportunity with the new district to do it better and focus on the things that are important to people. So
I agree, because when you do everything right, nobody pays attention, but you do one little thing wrong and all hell
Oh,
breaks loose.
boy.
And that, you know, city council is the perfect example of that. And Nick Fish once told me, he said, if I want to get everybody's attention, I tell them I'm going to do something crazy and they'll all come to a council meeting, and then I can tell them how I can do everything wonderful. So I, not that we need to take that ploy, but you know, it's something that important people have thought about, be it, you know, so the you know, if there's a flood, we want to let you know. Well, when the port built that third runway, holy moly, that was a big deal. And they came up with a, you know, little catchphrase, when the rubber hits the road, and told everybody what that meant and how much it would enhance the world of Portland. So, I mean, even bigger picture is Southwest Hills and Alameda and all of those people who, and I think all of us have been to enough community meetings that, you know, most of the people that attend them are ones that have something to complain about. People don't go there to tell you you're wonderful. So I just, to the point of doing the outreach, Jim went to our East Columbia neighborhood meeting, and two of the people were ones that gave me proxy votes and sent me an email saying it was great that guy, I mean, the name didn't stick. Yeah, who had, doesn't matter. That guy from the flood place came and told us what they're doing. Never had any idea that they were. What a great idea, keep us informed. Just that little piece picked up 2 or 3 people that had no clue, that are 30-year residents. So it does work to do little things and big things.
And it was really fun to go out. And Eric, thank you for inviting me to the Bridgeton land use meeting too. That was really fun and nice to see people.
It was a
And
huge meeting.
Clearly there's some interest, right, in at least among a handful of people, and those people all talk to people. And I also want to remind you all that from the urban district standpoint, we have just under $1 million, about 700,000 set aside for some outreach work in the current fiscal year. We may reserve some of that for the following fiscal year. We have done one quantitative initial poll, and we just completed 4 qualitative focus groups to try and understand what people care about and what is it that's going to capture their attention. And then I think our urban board members also know that is it already? It's tomorrow. We're going to start our initial, very first blush look at some of the ways the costs could be spread across the full new district. And we have another couple of months, I think, of discussion with the board before we'd be ready to settle on a range or a narrower category of spending that we would request from folks. And once we get that from the board, we'll be in a position to do more assertive outreach to let people know how this might impact them. We're not quite there. We're almost there. And we have reserved pretty significant resources to help push all that information out. It will be insufficient, but we know we have a lot of work to do.
Thank you, Jim. I'd like to express my gratitude for the expertise that we have on our support staff, Hong keeping us legal, and all of the folks watching the accounting and stuff. It's really good to see Eric demonstrating that financial expertise that we're glad to have on the board.
Heck yeah.
It makes me feel good to know we have that. And I do appreciate Kathy rushing out of her previous meeting to get to this board meeting. Thanks for all being here. Eric, you have something you'd like to say?
Yeah, just a couple of things. So Evan, thank you for reaching out to Bridget and at the BNA. We do have email lists of people on the mortgages, and we'll be able to share that with you. I know that as part of my role as treasurer of the Roth Estates HOA, I have an email list that includes the renters, and we include it, 100% for the flood safety issues, such that if we have a flood event, we can get to the renters, not to JQ3 limited partnership in Bend, Oregon.
Or Denver, yeah.
Right,
Denver,
we're
yeah.
reaching out to real people, and we do know the people that run the Maddox organization for the apartments, and we'll be able to help you get in touch with them. So using the neighborhood associations is an excellent way to get to the population. So, and we want to help you with that, because the neighborhood is very interested about, when are we going to get those surveys? How are we going to respond to them? Jim teed it up very effectively during the meeting at the BNA. Over 90 people were there, sort of an overflow crowd for the Marriott. And I think that we'll be able to get a very complete set of discussions going with you on this pre-design phase.
It'll be great to have your support and those resources. Thanks for being willing to help.
Absolutely. So, Mr. President, Val, I really think that it's important that we as a board say, let's do everything that we can to get to quorum this next year in 2023. We want to have the people vote on us so that when we go through these really pretty significant changes, that everybody says, well, yeah, but they were elected. It was a free and fair election. And no, I'm serious, right?
Oh,
This is not carry fake in Arizona, but it's going to affect their lives. And if they say, yeah, I voted for him, he may be a jerk now, but he was elected, it really helps us gather together everybody and say, yeah, we support the urban flood safety and water quality district. We know that we need to do this, and we're going to vote for it.
I think you're right about that. We really do need the support that would help us get. Is there, do we need any formal acknowledgement? What we need is the effort when it rolls around close, right?
Oh, absolutely. And so this is really, getting us to the point that with Emily, that if she's running into problems with, who is this organization, please let us know. And we probably have the local manager of the apartment building or the property that we know, and can say, can you call your boss and tell him to get on and vote his acres?
Why don't we make sure and put a placeholder like on a June or July meeting next year, which gives us plenty of lead time. And I think maybe multiple mailings to the property owners, asking them to send proxies. We could probably pick a handful and have board members do outreach, because staff aren't supposed to do that legally. Hong, I'm sorry, I should have let you go.
Yeah, I just want to state for the record that just to be clear, we're following the statutory process to provide for a proper election or appointment of landowners, representatives, and you're in such a role. And what I'm hearing from this conversation today with the board is you want to do more than what the statute requires. And I think when that plan comes about, we'll need to make that distinction very clear so that there are no challenges if we can't get another quorum. So I just want to be very clear that we are following the statutory mandate. You are all sitting in these positions validly, and we could obviously do more for the purposes of strategic planning for the new board as we continue in these legacy roles. Thank you.
Do folks know how many acres we'll have to have next time to have quorum?
Can I just add one little thing in here so it'll save me an email to Emily and Evan? The Vanport Place Marking Project's been working with PIR and the Friends of PIR, and there's 10,000 on their mailing list, and they're more than willing to step in and do some events about floods and the history of PIR and what it meant and all of those things. And I know there's only 2 of you, and I have a staff, but anyway, you can use my connections and I can help with, they want to put an article in their newsletter, and they do the big NASCAR race in July and a big program. And so we could put things in that, and it would reach, not everybody lives in the floodplain, but they get 10,000 people a day at events, and they estimate that 70% of those are local. So there's opportunities like that I think we can use as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mary Helen. PIR has been wonderful over the years, and I've always been willing to help. A lot of times we end up making decisions about what we do based on resources. And so we definitely want to take up those opportunities that are free. But sometimes, we also just don't have the money to do the mailings and the printings and the things.
Yeah, and they'll do all of that. And
Okay.
I don't cost you any money as a consultant. More than willing to
we
help.
appreciate that.
Karen, you've been discreetly quiet during this. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Well, I'm just thinking, maybe the title, Multnomah County Drainage District, who cares what drains? But if we could broadcast that we're trying to keep your houses from flooding, we're trying to prevent PDX from being washed away by a major flood, people would come out more because nobody likes a flood. Does that make sense to anybody else?
Yeah. Flood is a more interesting word than drainage. Yes.
I don't mean to change the name of MCDD. I just mean, advertise the flood prevention
Well,
aspect.
and climate change is a big topic these days, so it's kind of like, where will you be when the flood comes? Something like, just, and not to alarm people, but that's gonna happen. I mean,
I'm thinking vote or die. What do you think, you guys?
yeah, there you go.
Good.
Or float, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's where
Well,
you can
have
build
we-
a catch
have we
a
had an
boat.
opportunity? Is there any further comments before we close?
Thank you for raising these issues
No
and for
further
taking
business we
time
need
to
to
give us
transact?
direction. Sorry, Val.
Thank you
Thank you
so
guys
much.
for raising this stuff, and regrets for sort of the hectic nature at the beginning of the landowner meeting. And again, we'll take this up next spring or early summer and try and get a little bit more momentum going into the landowner meeting. And then in the meantime, we'll try and keep you informed of the planning that we're doing around the urban district as it evolves. We get a little clearer on what our outreach is going to look like.
And thank you again, Jim, for your responsible handling of these problems we had with the assessments.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was a team effort.
Thank you.
M2's meeting is adjourned.
Bye, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you again for your time.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
Yep.
Thank you.